Welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast with your hosts, Betsy Westhafer and Tony Bodo. Join Betsy and Tony as they dive in with highly successful C-suite leaders who have grown successful organizations by creating a laser focus on listening to their customers and building deep customer relationships. Now, it's time to join Betsy and Tony for the Really Know Your Customer show.
Welcome to the Really Know Your Customer podcast. My name is Tony Bodo, CEO of Tony Bodo International.
And I'm Betsy Westhafer, CEO of the Congruity Group, and we are thrilled to death to have you here today.
Absolutely. Betsy, first of all, I want to take a shout out because I know we have not talked about it extensively, but we do have a new book out, and I really want to make a shout out for that. It's something that we put a lot of time and effort in this year, and something that I know a lot of people would get value from. So our new book, Betsy, what is it?
It's called The Rarest Advantage, How to Co-Create Value with Your Strategic Customers. And we are really excited about it. We've gotten some really great feedback, and it's available on Amazon. And so check it out.
Absolutely. So little shameless plug there, but I wanted to bring it up because I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today, it's really about small businesses. It's about how small businesses can grow. And so if they're thinking about how to grow, they've got to be thinking about their strategic customers. Who is their core customer, their strategic customer that they really need to grow? But let's set that aside for a moment. And I am excited to talk about who we're interviewing today, Prashant from Fundbox. He is the CEO of Fundbox. And what I really loved about this interview, Betsy, and I think the audience is going to pick up on, is that he is passionate about what he does. And he will go through some statistics. I'm going to throw a few of them out here, but listen for these. He talks about 82% of small businesses fail because of cash flow issues. It's not bad management. It's not bad product. It's because, frankly, the money doesn't come in as fast as the money's going out, and they've got to manage that cash flow. We're talking 30-day net, 60-day net. The payment terms are really what kill a lot of small businesses. And the other piece to this, and this one shocked me, there's $1 trillion in unpaid invoices owed to small businesses. $1 trillion is huge. And, I studied economics in my undergrad program, and it's not just about how much money is in the economy, it's how fast that money turns over. If small businesses have access to that $1 trillion 2 weeks faster, it actually speeds up. It means they can spend that money or invest that money, use that money. We could literally grow the economy just by turning that money over faster, because they'll get it in, they'll use it to pay expenses or investments, they'll get paid again, and the cycle continues. So, when we look at we're in this potential recession, we've got this, inflation happening. One way to solve that is to turn money over faster, not to hold back and slow it down.
Yeah, and that's what Fundbox is designed to do, is to help those small businesses do just that. And you touched on it. He's very passionate about their mission, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. They have a really cool model for how they incorporate their mission throughout the entire fabric of the organization. And I agree with you. I just think the impact of being able to help these small businesses that have good businesses, they have good people, good products, good services, good customers. It's just the cash flow issue. And he does talk a little bit about how the bigger organizations really draw that out and just really put a hardship on the small businesses by paying in, 30, 60, sometimes 90 days. And it's a rule of engagement. If you want to work with us, 90 days it is, and there's really little room for negotiation. And we as a small business, we've run into that as well. And so I feel the pain that he was describing on it. But anyway, enough of us talking about what we're going to hear. Let's jump right in and hear from Prashant Fuloria, CEO of Fundbox. Welcome, Prashant. We're so happy to have you here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We are ready to dive in. So let's kick it off with you talking to us just about who you are. Tell us about your company, Fundbox, and tell us kind of your journey, how you got to this point in your career.
So I'm Prashant. I'm the CEO of Fundbox. Fundbox is a working capital solution for small businesses, and we'll talk a bit about that. I've been at Fundbox for a little over 6 years, but have spent more time than I'd like to admit, a little over 2 decades in Silicon Valley, working in various product and technology roles. I guess I'm a tech exec today, but I'm really a product manager at heart. I grew up in the discipline of product management at companies like Google and Facebook, where I spent over a decade. Also did a few startups in between, one of which was acquired by Yahoo. So most recently was SVP at Yahoo before joining Fundbox 6.5 years ago. Very, very excited about technology, about being able to build products that have an impact. And that is sort of the reason why when I saw Fundbox, I just fell in love with the company and I knew I had to be part of the team. So as I mentioned earlier, Fundbox is a working capital platform for small businesses. What that means is our mission is to use technology to help small business owners really manage and optimize their cash flow so that they can better run and grow their businesses. And in order to do this, we provide a number of tools for small business owners, a revolving line of credit, one-time loans, as well as a spend management tool, all within sort of our Fundbox product suite. And our small business customers can either access our products and services natively, that means on our website or in our mobile app, or they can access us inside of other systems and ecosystems that they might work in. So for example, we're in the Stripe app marketplace. So if you use Stripe for payments, you can use Fundbox to get access to working capital. We're natively embedded inside of QuickBooks. So if you're a small business customer, a small business owner who uses QuickBooks, you can use Fundbox as well, or other partners like Zoho or FreshBooks, Synchrony Bank, and so on. And so our mission is to reach as many customers as we can, either directly or through partners into whom we embed our services.
And can you talk to us a little bit more specifically about your customers? Who is the person that first comes to Fundbox? Why do they come to Fundbox? What are some of the challenges that they're experiencing that they would need, that line of credit and the things that you do to help them? What are you seeing there in terms of your customer base?
So our customer is a small business. Now, the word small business is actually quite broad, especially in the US, when the Small Business Administration calls every business that has less than 500 employees a small business. And that's a very, very wide range. By that definition, Fundbox with 350 employees is also a small business. But the kinds of customers that we're talking about are at the smaller end of the small business spectrum. So these are people that are sole proprietors or freelancers, or they may have a few employees, maybe a dozen or maybe about 20 employees or so. Their annual revenues could be a few tens of thousands of dollars to maybe a few hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe up to $1 million or $2 million a year, but not much larger than that. And this is a really important part of the market because it turns out that the vast majority of the 32.5 million small businesses in the US are less than 1 million in revenue and relatively small in size in terms of number of employees. But it's also that part of the small business economy which is the most underserved. These are small businesses that are looking for solutions all across the spectrum of customer acquisition, as well as financial services. And when it comes to financial services, there aren't that many options that are readily available to small business owners. So it turns out that 82% of small business failures are because of a cash flow gap or a working capital challenge. It's not because the business was fundamentally bad or they didn't have any customers or they were delivering a lousy product or service. It's because they just were not able to make the timing of inbound and outbound cash flows work. And that's terrible. That's terrible that still happens with working capital, which is like oxygen for a small business. You need it every day, you need it to work. And so the way the traditional financial services sector is set up, it's very difficult for, let's say, a bank to be able to address the needs of these small businesses because it's way too expensive to be able to assess a small business in a highly human capital oriented manual way. It costs the average bank $3,000-4,000 to just assess a small business. And that's way too expensive if they're only looking for a relatively small or a modest financial product. And this is where you need technology and you need automation to be able to serve these customers in a scalable way. And so our customers run the gamut from products and services across that, from B2B, i.e. small businesses that serve other businesses to B2C across all the states in the US. So a lot of geographic, vertical diversity. And I think what unites them all is they're out there trying to build something, they're trying to build a business, they're trying to grow it. And the number one challenge they always face is that you have to invest upfront in headcount, in materials, in supplies, in order to get paid later. And if you add up all the unpaid invoices that are owed to a small business in the US, that's about $1 trillion. So there's $1 trillion of capital that's out there that is lying locked up and unavailable for to these small business owners that they could have used to help them run and grow their businesses.
I find it really fascinating. I mean, just the size and scope of this. Until we talked in our prep session, I did not realize how significant it was. And I've been running a small business for the greater part of my career. Betsy's been, doing the same thing. But when you talk about a couple of these metrics, just I want to go back to them for the listener. $1 trillion in capital in unpaid invoices. I mean, we look at the economy like right now, we've got the inflation, we've got potentially recession going on. There's money out there that's just basically on hold. And I can tell you, I've been through, in my business, having to figure out, do I do 15 days net? Do I do 30 days net? Do I allow them to do 40 days? I had one company that was a Fortune 100 company wanting to do 60 to 90 days net. And I said, absolutely not. I can't afford that. It's interesting. They want to hold on their capital, but they don't realize that the experts, a lot of consultants are small business owners. The experts can't afford to do that. And then this other side, 82% of businesses failing due to cash flow is astonishing, because we hear a lot. I got my MBA and all that, but my MBA didn't help me run my business better because it's a small business, not a large business, right? But they don't talk about the cash flow side of things. They tend to blame it on the business owner that, they didn't have the skills or something like that. But the reality is expensive to start a business. So this whole technology side is really insightful. Yeah, I think it's so important to pull this out.
Yeah. So Tony, I'm going to say two things that are very counterintuitive and almost ironic. This cash flow gap that you talk about, the timing of inbound and outbound cash flows, it hurts most when you're actually a growing business. If you're a business in steady state, over time, if inflows and outflows are about the same, you can build up a reserve and generally be okay. But when you're a growing business, you have to invest upfront to get revenues and cash later. So you're spending more today than you're making today in revenue because you're investing for future revenues. So ironically, this cash flow gap hurts growing businesses right at the time when they need capital most. So that's one thing. The other thing, and you mentioned that, Tony, a little bit, it's also ironic that, especially if you're a B2B small business, like a small business that serves other businesses, the more blue chip your customers are, the bigger a problem. Because the larger your customers, the more negotiating leverage they have. And so they could say, yeah, it's net 90 or nothing. And then you have to make the decision about whether to actually serve them that way and then get paid 3, maybe 4 months after the fact. And some of these larger companies have like armies of finance people whose job it is to manage their cash flow and optimize that, which comes at the expense of the small business owner's cash flow. So that's also ironic, because the higher quality or the larger your customers are, the more challenging it is. A person once told me, Prashant, when it comes to B2B, the bigger B always wins, which just basically means that the bigger business has the leverage. And that's something that we'd like to be able to change. We'd like to be able to create a bit more of a level playing field for businesses to interact and to operate. And so that's sort of our mission, is using technology to provide the tools and solutions for a small business that might otherwise only be available to a mid-cap or a mid-size or a larger.
Prashant, you mentioned the word mission, and that's what I was thinking as you were talking about this. You're obviously very passionate about the plight of small business owners and what you can do to help solve those challenges for them and what that means on a global sense. I mean, the better that small businesses do, the better our economy does, the better families do, all of that. Can you talk a little bit more about that mission focus, and also how your company views customer engagement, customer everything, and how you show up for your customers?
Absolutely. I think the mission that we have of serving small businesses, it's really helpful for us because it helps ground us and in what we need to do. It also helps motivate us because in any company's life cycle, there are always ups and downs, there are always challenges. But if you're trying to do something that's bigger than yourself, it really just helps you take that next step and that next step and just keep moving forward. It's also interesting that these days, especially in a sort of a pandemic / post-pandemic world where people are working virtually, everybody's on some sort of video conferencing platform. There's so much mobility when it comes to where you want to work as an employee. Any of our employees at Fundbox could easily get on a Zoom call like the one that we're on and get another job. And I think at that point, what ties people to a company is what they see in it beyond just, here's a paycheck, here's an occupation. It's really around, who am I working with? What mission are we on? And so I think the more we recognize and appreciate what we are trying to accomplish, the more we are able to connect with people within the company as well around, this is who we are, and who we are may be great for someone, may not be the right job for somebody else, but that way you're able to attract the people who find us exciting. Many of our employees have been or are small business owners themselves. So for example, the chief of staff at Fundbox, his uncle and his father started a burger place in San Francisco. It's called Sam's Burgers. And it's one of the most celebrated burger joints in San Francisco. And the famous chef, Anthony Bourdain, once sort of came by and said, "Oh, this is the best burger I've ever had." And so the place gained some notoriety as a result of that. And so he's seeing both at work what we're doing to solve small businesses, but then when he goes back and talks to his family, well, he's seeing a real small business that is benefiting. So I think those kinds of connections, if you will, really strengthen that mission. People whose parents have run small businesses, or who see their friends or family members run small businesses. How that translates into how we interact with our customers is really interesting, because it's almost like a dichotomy. Because on the one hand, we're a tech company where, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of what we want to do is to be able to use technology to serve small businesses in a scalable way. And so there's a lot about data, technology, as simple a product as possible so that the vast majority of our customers don't need to call us or talk to us to be able to use our product. But at the same time, we also want to be there in case they do need help. And we want to talk to them. Because one thing I'll tell you is this: we've got access to reams and reams of data. We've built enormous data sets that are, frankly, like a competitive advantage for us. And that's really very important. We've got a team of amazing data scientists, but there is no substitute for actually meeting a customer and talking to them about what they need. And time again, the things that I learn from a customer conversation are things that I could probably never figure out by just looking at data alone.
What are some of those examples? Things that you've learned just in talking with customers?
So, there are so many. So for example, our entire executive team on a regular basis goes through customer calls. So we go through recorded customer conversations, with our support staff or, with our salespeople. And there are things that you realize when you hear a real customer talking about a real problem. Somebody might be interrupting the call to take a call from a client, right? So they need to respond to their customer. That's important. You might hear a crying baby in the background. And then you realize that these small business owners, our customers, are not only running a business, which itself is challenging, and you're the person. It's not like you have an army of people where you've got a CFO who takes care of the finances, and you've got a CMO who takes care of the marketing, and you've got a COO who takes care of the operations. No, you're doing it all yourself, or maybe with just a couple of other people. So that's tough enough. But in addition, you're doing other things. You're taking care of a family. There's all these other things happening in your life, and so it really helps us understand and motivate us to build simpler and simpler and simpler products, because our customers are sort of desperate for time. And also understand that there are so many other things happening in their world. Now, customer conversations also yield direct insights. I remember talking to a software developer. He sort of does software consultancy, does software projects. And he was telling me about challenges in getting paid. Tony, exactly like what you said. Net 15, net 30, net 60, getting paid like way after the fact, and how that was creating a problem for him. And then he mentioned he had contractors and employees, both. And I asked him, well, what do you do when you're late getting paid with your contractors? And he said, oh, I just push out their payments. So with contractors, he was transferring some of that pain down the supply chain. And I asked him the same question about his employees, and he said, oh, I would never delay paying my employees. I'd rather not get paid myself than not pay my people. So it was very clear to me that he thought very differently between his employees and his contractors. And paying his employees on time was a matter of like pride and honor. And it's a very different thing. And that was actually an inspiration for a product that we later built, which we can talk about. But it was an insight that, again, it's hard to get this from data, but when you talk to a person, you realize how much of an importance they place to making certain kinds of payments compared to other kinds of payments. Like not all your payments are the same. So that was like an insight that I really appreciated.
Prashant, what advice would you give to the person who has a startup and he's trying to grow, and some of the things that maybe could help prevent? I mean, obviously you want them to have access to Fundbox, but what are some of the things that could maybe prevent the desperation sometimes that small businesses feel, like, not waiting too long to engage with a company like Fundbox? Or just when you're talking with small business owners, what are some of the things that you would coach them on?
I think that small business owners are always stepping out into a more challenging world. It's filled with rewards, but it also has it's a less structured world than the world of a regular 9-to-5 or 9-to-6 job. And I think that first and foremost, I think folks just need to be prepared for that journey. It is something where we hear customers talk about how they're even thinking about and working on their businesses over the weekends. It's in some ways, until you get to like a place of great stability, it's a never-ending 24/7 thing. I think there are a number of tools out there to help you manage your business today that perhaps weren't there 5 or 10 years ago. Whether it's using a tool for managing your marketing and your customers, or tools for managing your finances like a Fundbox, or making sure that you have a good sort of online presence that helps you engage with your customers at a bigger scale. I think there's just a lot going on. And by the way, what we find is that our business owners today are way more digitally savvy and actually looking for digital solutions than, say, 5 years ago. We recently ran a survey where, amongst other things, we learned that despite all the challenges in the economy, I think that are happening, I think Tony may have alluded to that earlier, folks are feeling pretty optimistic about the future of their businesses and also wanting to invest in digital solutions. And I think the pandemic just accelerated the trend towards digitalization across the entire spectrum, including financial services. I'd say being able to get a good handle on your finances is critical. What I find is that there are two kinds, and this is a massive generalization, so please forgive me in advance. I find that there are two kinds of business owners. One for whom the business is really about the craft, and it's about, I'm a painter, so I want to paint, or I really like building things, so I'm a manufacturer, or in construction. I'm a contractor in the construction industry. For many of our customers, the thing that they like the least is all the money related work that they have to do. They don't want to have to follow up with a customer to have them pay an invoice. They don't want to have to spend time looking over the books. They like their craft. And that I think is actually the majority of small business owners, at least in my experience. And then, of course, you've got the other side. There are some small business owners who are very, very financially savvy. We've got small business owners who are accountants, and so they know their finances inside out. But I think that even for people who are just a little bit more reluctant to understand or spend time looking at the financial aspects of their business, I think it's so important, because that, again, going back to the 82%, can make the difference between having a long-term, scalable, successful business versus one where, again, you may have a cash flow issue that could seriously jeopardize your business.
It's really fascinating to me to think about the different responsibilities that people have. I mean, I do it every day. Betsy does it every day. We're playing multiple roles in that, and how you engage and how you draw the insights out is really fascinating. There was something we talked about during our prep session, which I want to hit on here, and that is the key principles that you use at Fundbox to operate. Can you talk through what those principles are and how they affect the decisions that you're making?
We've spent some time thinking about what are our values, and obviously those values translate to principles as well. And so a couple of years ago, we came up with this acronym called MOSAIC. And MOSAIC has these 6 letters, and each letter corresponds to a principle. The first one is M for mission, which we've spoken about already. We take our mission seriously. We're really focused on it. It's a big part of who we are. The second is what we call ownership, in which what it means is that we're all owners in Fundbox, which is both literally because people have ownership in terms of equity, but also ownership in terms of just a responsibility to the company. So what I mean by that is, back in the days when we were mostly in the offices, like if there were dirty dishes in the sink, anybody, myself included, would just go and like clean them or put them in the dishwasher, get them there. If something is not right, it's sort of all of our responsibilities to point it out and try to figure out how to solve those problems. And you have people going way out of their official job responsibilities to do things that they don't have to do because they feel like Fundbox is my company and I want to make it a better company. There's an element of S, which is speed. Ultimately, we are in a world that's moving very fast, and by all indications, it's going to move faster and not slower. And so being able to do things quickly, whether it's communicate quickly, whether it's make decisions quickly, whether it's to execute quickly, it's been really important. The fourth one, which is A, is a bit of a mouthful. It's ahwa, which is really sort of a Hebrew word, which means friendship and camaraderie. So piece of context here is that about little less than half of our employees are actually in Tel Aviv, in Israel. And so a lot of our engineering and data science is in Israel. So we borrowed this word from Hebrew. And ahwa is just about having sort of this team spirit, collaborativeness. And when I talk to people who just joined Fundbox, I ask them, how are things going? This is your first week or your second week. How does this feel? And they often say, you know what, the one thing is, I'm amazed by how friendly the people are. If I have a question, I can go to anybody, in the company. And in the old days, it used to be I can walk to anybody's desk. Today, it is I Slack anybody and I get a response. Some people will go out their way to explain how things work and so on. There's the I, which is innovation, which is important for us. We want to build products. I think solving the needs of small business owners is really around. It requires innovation because things have been done a particular way for a long time. And the last one, which is C, which stands for clarity. And by clarity, what I mean is, one is transparency. Like most of the information in the company is available to all our employees, but also trying to keep clarifying on an ongoing basis, what are we trying to accomplish? What are the challenges that we're facing? What just happened here? What is this team working on? How does that impact what you're working on? And trying to drive that transparency such that a lot of people at Fundbox have a pretty good sense of where the company is. And you'd be surprised that they understand the opportunities and the challenges. And with this value of clarity, my personal philosophy is share, provide the context. I guess C could stand for context as well. And then people will make the right decisions. If they know what you're trying to accomplish, that's the mission, and they also have all the context around making those decisions. And I think a lot of folks that run large companies or run large organizations tend to sort of filter information because they're concerned about, well, if this is not good news, how are my people going to react? Will they be disappointed and disheartened? And sort of my sort of simple thinking is, if you empower people and treat them like adults, you'll be surprised at what they're able to do and how much of ups and downs they're able to internalize, because they feel like they're part of the team. They roll with the punches, they move forward. Whereas if you try to sort of selectively share information and massage things too much, it's just not quite as effective.
Prashant, that is so timely for me to hear. We just had an internal conversation this morning about that very thing, and about sharing with your employees and the transparency. And I love what you said. I'm going to go back to my team and share that what you said about context and clarity helps them make better decisions on their own because they see the bigger picture. So that was very timely. One of the things, Prashant, that we love to do on this show is give our guests an opportunity to promote, give a shout out to a nonprofit or a charitable organization. And then we try to shine a spotlight on them in our show notes. So is there an organization that you would like to talk about?
Oh, absolutely. There are many organizations that are doing really good work. I'm going to talk about one of them, which is actually not oriented around small businesses, but something else that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm a musician, and so I love to play music, love to enjoy music. And one of the things that's happened over time is music education in schools, especially public schools, has suffered because of lack of funding. So there's an organization called Little Kids Rock, which was founded by someone I know, a guy named David Wish, who used to be formerly a school teacher himself. And realizing that something had to be done about the need for funding music programs in schools, he started this organization, Little Kids Rock, and has been raising funds to provide instruments like guitars and other things to schools, but then also funding for educational programs. He's been doing this across the country now for well over a decade, and has been successful in motivating and gathering even like very famous musicians to be able to sort of contribute to the cause. And I've been fortunate to have actually participated and performed at some of the Little Kids Rock events myself in the past. And it's just incredible because when you see middle school kids or high school kids playing music and really developing and spending time and focus on that, it gives them confidence. It keeps them out of trouble. It makes them connect with other people in ways that might not have otherwise been possible. So I'm a big fan of David Wish. I'm a big fan of the Little Kids Rock program and the nonprofit that he started.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And we'll put a link to their website in our show notes and make sure that we spread the word about that. That's awesome. But I have to ask, what do you play?
I'm a guitar player. And so I just typically play electric guitar, mostly blues and rock and a bit of jazz. It's something that I wish I were doing more of. Haven't had the time to do that much over the last few years, but it's always at the back of my mind. And whenever I get some time, I pick out a guitar and play it a little bit. And it's just a really good thing to be able to go to every now and then.
Oh, that's nice. Well, this time has gone so fast. I just looked at the clock. I can't believe how fast this conversation went. Tony, any final questions before we wrap?
Oh, we have so much good information here. I think the one question I'd ask would be, what do you really see for the future of Fundbox? Like in 2 or 3 sentences, what do you see for Fundbox in the next 2 to 3 years?
Our mission will remain the same, really around helping small business customers better run and grow their businesses by helping them with their cash flows. What that means for us in terms of growing our impact is 2 things. One, serving a lot more customers, one by working with them directly, but by also partnering with more and more and more ecosystems and providers that serve small businesses. And so today we work with a lot of tech companies, like I mentioned, Stripe and Intuit and so on, because that's our background, that's our DNA. But we're also going to start working with banks where we embed Fundbox inside of their banking stacks so that they can serve their small business customers using our technology. So again, having impact by serving more customers. The other thing is having impact or growing our impact by adding more products and more ways in which our customers can use us. We started off with a line of credit. We added kind of loans to that. And just about a year ago, we added a spend management tool where people can use our virtual account to make critical business payments. We recently partnered with Visa to add a card. So now we'll have a small business flex charge card, and we'll add sort of bill pay capabilities as well. And so we're always growing our product suite such that once a customer is on Fundbox, they can use more and more tools in that toolkit to be able to better run their businesses. So for us, that's how we think about growing our impact, more and more customers, as well as more and more ways in which to serve them.
I love that, because listening to the customer and knowing what they need is such a huge part of this.
And I'm just thinking, you use the word impact, what this does, just huge impact. And as Tony mentioned, we're both small business owners, and, that's the stuff that keeps people awake at night. And so I love what you're doing. Best of luck to you moving forward. I think it's just a fascinating conversation, but also a really important conversation, because small business is the engine behind everything we do here. And so anyway, thank you so much, Prashant. We're so appreciative of your time today, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a fantastic interview. I mean, Prashant is just so, number one, so alive, so passionate about what he does. But, there's so many things that he pulled out there that we covered so much ground. So I want to pull out these pieces here. One, when he talked about how their executive team gets on calls, I know that was a really quickly stated. I want to make sure people hear that. Their executive team gets on these calls with customers. They listen to the recordings, but they also engage. They have focus groups. They have an advocacy board. They're doing all of these things that they can to really know their customer. And the stories he was telling us, I mean, it's fascinating. Just from the anecdotes about, like, you hear a baby crying in the background, you realize that's probably a mom or a dad taking care of a child while they're trying to run their business. I've been there. I really have. And then, you talk to people, and he talks about the software developer, like, really understanding, like, the different ways they think about, am I paying my employees? Am I paying myself? Am I paying my contractors? We've all probably had to make those decisions, to be honest, and to hear how they listen for that and then try to come up with solutions so that the business owner doesn't have to make that decision. That's powerful to me. That again comes back to the whole premise of the show, really knowing your customer.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the human aspect of it. And Tony, we've written about the human aspect a lot, extensively, in our first book, Profitability. But then when we talked about the nonprofit that he's involved in, you realize, okay, he's the CEO of a fast growing tech company, and he's playing guitar for little kids so that they can embrace music. And, you realize that these are people doing human things. And one of my favorite things when we were writing Profitability was when you said it's not business to business, it's human to human. And I think Prashant is an idyllic example of what that means and how that again incorporates throughout the fabric of Fundbox. So with that, we're going to wrap. Tony, thanks. Always a pleasure doing these conversations with you. Thank you to our audience. If you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, please do, and leave a review if you are so inclined. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you next time on the Really Know Your Customer podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Really Know Your Customer. We hope you gained a lot of value from being here today. If you want to learn more about the work Betsy and Tony do to help their clients thrive, visit Betsy at thecongruitygroup.com and Tony at tonybodo.com. See you next time on the Really Know Your Customer show.